of the 100th anniversary of Black History Month celebration, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy. He's been married for 6 years. Videotaping his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon. Honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement, we're KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Today is February 18th. How can I ever forget that? February 18th, and we are live on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I had the great privilege earlier today of having a press conference in front of my parents' home, the home that they raised us in. And Yusef Jackson offered reflections. Santita Jackson offered reflections. Congressman Jonathan Jackson offered reflections. My sister Ashley Jackson, our sister Ashley Jackson offered reflections. And of course, I offered reflections. And I was so grateful for the global coverage of that press conference and so grateful for all of the attention that is being paid by the local media on Jesse Jackson's life. I realize that we're becoming forward in just a moment, and I'll talk more about that on the other side of the break. But I do want to say this. After the press conference, I went to the funeral home to check on my father's status, and I should share with you 3 or 4 days before his passing, Dad was at peace, even as he labored to breathe. And having spent some private time with him today, he's definitely at peace. And my mother has insisted upon certain requirements for his public viewing when those details are made available, including, but not limited to, having a glass-covered coffin. And I just want everyone to know that that Dad is in a very, very comfortable place. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. I realize we're not going to break. I realize it. I'm just going to say that I'm on KBLA Talk 1580. And I do want to say that I'm very honored that our very special guest in this hour is our regular contributor, P.L. Da Silva, who wrote a wonderful piece, Ode to U.S. Civil Rights icon, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., 1941 to 2026, A Life That Carried the Rainbow. And so I want to take this opportunity to introduce to some. Dr. P.L. Da Silva has over 20 years of experience in backroom diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation. He's taught politics, international relations, and several graduate, undergraduate programs. And in this hour, we're going to reflect on Reverend Jesse Jackson's international accomplishments. P.L., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, Jesse, and my heartfelt condolences from Asa and me to you and the whole family.
P.L., can you share with us the thoughts behind your piece dated Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, A Life That Carried the Rainbow?
Yes, he was a huge figure. He was a towering figure, your dad. And we need him and his spirit even more in the America that we are living in today. He demonstrated leadership, and it was not about perfection. It was about fidelity to principles, to people, and to purpose. That is what your dad embodied in this country and for people across the globe. He is truly a US civil rights icon, and I salute him and you and the whole family. And it is now time for you, Jesse, to take up the mantle of your father's great deeds and continue. This is what we need. We need hope, as your dad said. We need to keep hope alive. And it was not a slogan for Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It was a discipline. It was a moral posture. It was a promise to those America had locked out of the prosperity and of its prosperity and pushed to the margins of its democracy, which is happening again now. And for more than 5 decades, he kept that promise, organizing, marching, preaching, negotiating, and standing up, most importantly, in solidarity with oppressed peoples at home and abroad.
PL, one of the things that I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I'd like to go to a clip that was prepared earlier by our production team, by Gina and our team, and then we'll come right back to Jesse Jackson's more international accomplishments. Yes. Gina, please roll the clip.
Dad believed that funerals were not for the dearly departed. He believed funerals were for the living. He believed that they were great gathering meetings. These homegoing services are welcome to all. Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived. Dad would have wanted us to have a great meeting to discuss our differences, to find ways of moving forward and moving together. And if his life becomes a turning point in our national political discourse, amen. Amen.
I can see Dr. King welcoming him in and saying, son, I told you were going to do it. I can see so many people who are saying, you kept that charge. You were faithful servant. Well done. May he rest in peace, but may his spirit live forever, and let us continue the work, everyone. That is what he would want us to do.
Yes, sir.
My father comes up from the Jim Crow South.
Yes.
In his lifetime, he was arrested trying to visit a public library. My father grew up in a part of the country where there were segregated water fountains and segregated graveyards. So let's not measure the man by where he ended, but think about where he had to start.
Our father is a man who dedicated his life to public service, to gain, protect, and defend civil rights and human rights, to make our nation better, to make the world more just, our people better neighbors with each other. And we, his family, and the many others touched by him, inspired by him, are left obligated to continue his work to make our nation a better place for all through the techniques and tools and policy goals and platforms that he championed and left us to use.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is PL De Silva. PL, my brothers and sisters, I believe, are doing the very best they can under the circumstances to rise to the occasion.
Yes, indeed. And we need to keep the faith. We need to get together. We need to keep that the momentum of the Rainbow Coalition, the push that your dad advocated for, that he preached for, that he struggled for. This is something that is our duty to do.
PL, in your piece, you've broken it down into several sections. You call Jesse Jackson the heir to a movement, the builder of a coalition.
Yes.
Is that a distinguishing factor for the life of Jesse Jackson?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. He stood up and raised his hand and was counted at a time when other politicians were shy to do so. And he encompassed and included everybody, African Americans, Asians, Caucasians, you name it, everybody, every hue of humanity. And that was his greatness. He brought everybody together. And I'd like to say something about his internationalism. His
Please.
internationalism was a moral imperative.
And you say it's a moral imperative in part because he had cut his teeth in domestic concerns, but he too then understood that there is a relationship between what is taking place domestically and internationally.
Exactly. He made the connection and the light bulbs went off. And he was a pathfinder. So he was very courageous, and his courage was not confined to domestic battles. And he stood up at a time of Cold War orthodoxy and Middle East politics that was very acrimonious, very pro-Israeli colonialism, and it discouraged nuance and punished dissent. He insisted, your father insisted, that American moral credibility required consistency, something that is lacking today. He extended solidarity to the oppressed peoples of Palestine long before it was politically fashionable or safe to do so. He also argued that the dignity and rights of Palestinians were inseparable from the universal principles Americans claimed to cherish. He sought dialogue with leaders across divides, believing that empathy was not endorsement and that engagement was a prerequisite for peace. We need global peace, and we need Jesse Jackson Sr.'s spirit to give us emphasis for peace.
You know what, PL? I want to say this. When I remember 1984 and 1988, when Jesse Jackson was actually bringing this coalition into the Democratic primary process. Now, this is hard for some people to imagine if you didn't live during that period. Most minorities show up in the general election. That's the November contest. They didn't show up in the primaries. They missed, if you will, the primaries in the midterm elections prior to 1984. No one had ever given us a reason to show up in the primary process. And the way in which the primary process was actually laid out, Iowa would vote for whoever the Democratic nominee was going to be. If that Democratic nominee emerged out of Iowa successfully, usually a white guy, they would then go on to New Hampshire and run, the first primary state beyond the caucuses of Iowa. And whoever wins the New Hampshire primary and has won the Iowa caucuses is usually en route to the Democratic nomination. And they still hadn't yet met African-American voters or voters of color in any significant measure. That's not easy for people to reconcile, but that was the reality prior to 1984. When Jesse Jackson shows up, runs well in Iowa and runs well in New Hampshire and begins building a broad-based coalition, the Democratic primaries by definition were extended because as they turned the corner to Super Tuesday, with multiple white male candidates in the race, Jesse Jackson played better and fared better in his nascent Rainbow Coalition in those states which extended the Democratic election and primary process. Usually after New Hampshire, other Democrats start folding their tents, feeling as though they don't have or didn't have an opportunity to win. So I want to say that because it is directly tied to the policies that Jesse Jackson stood for in the international sphere, because it brought over time the idea that minority voters could have some say in foreign policy by holding Democrats accountable earlier to their positions in the primary process internationally. In other words, we didn't have to wait for a plank at the Democratic Convention in the summer of the election year. You had to tell us where you stood in the primary process. And it would be Jesse Jackson who would say, we must measure human rights, this is his language, by one yardstick. The same yardstick, 36 inches. That every human life must be measured by that 36 inches. That Israeli security and Palestinian justice must be measured by the same yardstick. That freedom for Mandela in South Africa must be measured by the same yardstick. That freedom for people in Cuba and liberation for people in South America and Panama must be measured by the same yardstick. If we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. I was there in 84 and 88. And I heard Jesse Jackson making this plea to the nation and making this plea to the world that we must measure human rights by one yardstick. And that included international law and a respect for international law and the actions of the United Nations in the world order. Pio?
Yes, I'm glad that you brought up South Africa, because your father was equally forthright in condemning South Africa's apartheid regime. While many US leaders hedged or prioritized strategic interests, he stood with the anti-apartheid movement. He supported sanctions and economic pressure to dismantle the apartheid system that had codified racial subjugation. When Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years of imprisonment, your father was among those who celebrated not only a man's freedom, but a new South Africa, a nation's birth. So in both Palestine and South Africa, your father, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.'s stance reflected a deeper conviction, and that is that civil rights were not an American export, but a universal birthright, as you rightly said. His faith demanded it. His politics operationalized it.
Pio, you then go on to talk about the rainbow as a democratic blueprint, not necessarily as a coalition within the Democratic Party, but the idea of multicultural living as a democratic priority. You said the rainbow was not naive about power. It was strategic. It sought to translate moral energy into electoral leverage. Can you build upon that for us?
Yes. So the most important thing of my piece on your dad, my ode to your father, is that his life carried the rainbow. That it boils down to that. Your father's life carried the rainbow. So it is in an era increasingly defined by polarization today, right? Reverend Jackson's Rainbow Coalition reads less like a relic of the 80s and more a blueprint for democratic survival.
Less like a relic of the 80s, but more like a blueprint for the survival of the democracy itself.
Exactly. He recognized demographic change not as a threat, but as a promise. He saw in America's diversity the possibility of moral and economic renewal. He championed voting rights, labor protections, public education, and economic justice. He opposed apartheid abroad and discrimination at home. He insisted that foreign policy reflect domestic values and that domestic policy reckon with global inequality. The rainbow was not naive about power. It was strategic. It sought to translate moral energy into electoral leverage. And that was the genius. Jackson registered voters. He built grassroots networks. He forced party platforms to incorporate issues once dismissed as fringe. His presidential campaigns altered the calculus of American politics that demonstrated that Black candidates could compete nationally, that poor and working class voters could be mobilized across racial lines, and that progressive foreign policy positions had a constituency.
P.L., my mother insisted that I say this today at the press conference, and you write about it in this ode to the life of Jesse Jackson, a hand extended across the divides. My mother said that her husband's funeral will be open to all, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, Black, white, red, blue. She just wanted people to be respectful. She just wanted people to be thankful for the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And she too has extended a hand, if you will, across the political divide, welcoming anyone to her husband's funeral because it reflects the values of his life and the broad-based nature of who he was. And of course, some of us have our own political attitudes and dispositions about who should be at a funeral and who doesn't come to a funeral. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of us ain't nobody coming to your funeral because you didn't live the kind of life that Jesse Jackson lived. And so every funeral is different. People have a lot of friends. Some folk have no friends. And some people are actually exposed to friends for the very first time. The King of Great Britain has extended his heartfelt condolences to the life of Jesse Jackson, as well as leadership from around the world. How important is it that Mrs. Jackson's wishes be honored in recognizing the significance of the life of Jesse Jackson?
She really says it, because your father's most underappreciated gift was his willingness to extend the hand of friendship where animosity seemed entrenched. So she's very right to take up that. He believed in meeting adversaries face to face, not hide behind, on social media. You meet them face to face, not making caricatures and videos. He wanted to meet his adversaries face to face. He had the courage to do so. And he believed that even hardened systems could yield to persistent moral pressure. So it's our duty to speak to our brothers and sisters in Israel to make sure that the hardest of hearts are softened, that the Palestinians will get justice and freedom.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. He also extended an invitation, my mother did, to the right wing in this country, and you all know exactly what that means. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., more with P.L. De Silva in just a moment.
I went to my first high school basketball game in California Tuesday night and wound up seeing one of the best players in the country. I found out later in the first quarter that the kid is number 5 in the nation on ESPN's Top 100 for the class of 2026. The kid is Jason Crow Jr., a 6'4", smooth-shooting left-handed guard at Inglewood High. I know now why Crow is a top 5 prospect. He dropped 45 points last night to lead Inglewood to an 82-69 win over Anaheim Fairmont Prep in the Division I semifinals. 24 of his 45 points last night came on 3-pointers. Crow has one of the smoothest strokes for a jumper I've ever seen on the high school level, and I've seen my share of high school legends while growing up in Chicago. Crow is going to Missouri in the fall. How in the world did USC and UCLA let a kid like this get out of their backyard? No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Tavish Smiley, and I have some news. The room is full. Our founding members cohort on the Art of Conversation has begun, and I could not be more energized by the professionals who said yes to mastering the craft. Their dedication to curating great conversations reminds me why I do this work. Now, if you wanted to join us and did not make it in time, I want you to hear this. The next cohort is coming. I do not have the firm dates yet, but I do have a waiting list. And everyone on that list will receive early access and special discounts when enrollment opens. After almost 40 years of interviewing world leaders and cultural icons, I am teaching everything I know. Don't miss your chance to be in the next room. Go to TavishTalks.com and get on the waiting list right now. That's TavishTalks.com. The conversation continues. Will you be part of it?
Yeah, man.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And our regular host on this particular first hour of our program is always Dr. Piel Da Silva. Piel, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, my brother.
In your wonderful piece about my father, A Life That Carried the Rainbow, Pernaka L. Da Silva writes in this particular section, The Best of the United States. To commemorate Jesse Jackson is to acknowledge the paradox of America itself. He emerged from a nation scarred by slavery and segregation, yet he believed in its redemptive capacity. He criticized its failures unsparingly, yet he invested his life in its institutions. Piel, about the paradox.
Yes, your father was, at the end of the day, a patriot. He was an American patriot. And I think it behooves the people who are in power today to understand that the United States, at its best, is not defined by its military or economic dominance. It is defined by its capacity for self-correction, by its willingness to expand the circle of belonging, by its recognition that justice delayed is democracy diminished. This is a crucial lesson, and it was embodied by your father, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., a U.S. civil rights icon. And he embodied this tradition. He did not romanticize America. He challenged it. He called it to live up to its founding ideals, not selectively, and that's the most important thing, but universally, across the board. As debates rage today over voting rights, racial equity, immigration, Middle East policy, and America's global role, Reverend Jackson's life offers a moral compass. He reminds us that coalitions are built, not assumed, that solidarity is practiced, not proclaimed. That hope is sustained through organization, and this is something that I keep harping about. We need to organize in the spirit of the civil rights movement and be ready for the midterm elections, come hell or high water.
Piel, in your conclusion, you say in the final analysis, Jesse Jackson's greatest achievement may have been psychological. Now, this hit me and threw me for a minute because when you look at the news and the reflection on Jesse Jackson, some people see, particularly if you have a political lens on, you see it as what he accomplished in 1984 and 88 that one might conclude culminated in the election of Barack Obama and the nomination of Kamala Harris. That's the political lens. But then if you look at the same life through the civil rights lens, and more of that story is coming out, you see certain achievements in terms of Black economic progress. And I've heard through breadbasket devotees and Rainbow Push devotees and people who have followed my father's career over the course of their lives, devotees, the economic impact that he had on challenging corporate America, if you will, small but necessary tweaks to capitalism that had ignored the disparate, the damned, the locked out, and certainly minorities. But you say here that the Rainbow and Jesse Jackson's greatest achievement may have been psychological. I don't think I've heard anyone offer a psychological analysis of what Jesse Jackson did to America.
Because he made us believe in ourselves. He taught millions that their voices mattered. Even if you look at that clip, with the little children, he showed that people mattered. We matter. We may be of different, skin color. We talk with different accents, but we matter. And that's the most important psychological lesson for all of us to know, that we are worth. We are worth. It's not just only people in power, but the marginalized peoples. We are worth. We have worth. And we are not to be condemned for permanent marginalization. And politics, therefore, becomes an instrument of empowerment rather than exclusion. Hence the need for organization.
PL, our production team, Gina Towns, has a clip that she'd like to play right now.
I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. I may be in jail, but I am somebody. I may be uneducated, but I am somebody. I am black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. I am somebody. I know.
To your point, PL, people who were struggling with a consciousness of nobodiness, of deficiencies in what the system itself had beaten them down to believe about themselves, Jesse Jackson emerges with this mantra that is psychological, convincing people that they were different than they had perceived and conceived themselves.
Different and powerful. And that's the thing. We are powerful. We are not to be marginalized. The people united cannot be stopped. So let's see all our detractors in the midterm elections in November. Because your father showed the way. He was a pathfinder for African Americans, for Black Americans, who had never seen a serious presidential bid come from one of their own. He opened the door. And for Palestinians seeking to recognize their humanity, he offered validation. For South Africans resisting apartheid, he offered solidarity. For workers, immigrants, and the poor, he offered a coalition. This is what we need. He lived the conviction that the struggle for justice is indivisible. And today, as the rainbow he envisioned faces new storm, measure of dispute will not be in words but in action. To honor Jesse Jackson is to organize, to vote, to speak, to stand with the oppressed, whether in Chicago, Johannesburg, or Gaza, to build alliances across lines that others insist are permanent. He demonstrated that leadership grounded in faith, integrity, and courage can alter a nation's trajectory. He showed that America's story is not finished and that its best chapters are written by those who refuse to surrender to cynicism.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest is PL Da Silva. More when we come forward in just a moment.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized, the families who watched their inheritance disappear, the wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The BLM Center for Black Power is a hub for Black activism in the city of Los Angeles, a standalone nonprofit affiliated with Black Lives Matter LA. The venue is home to live events, meetings, and organizing drives for Black-led community-based organizations. It is also the base of operations for Black Lives Matter LA. Built on what used to be a nuisance property owned by an arms dealer, the BLM Center for Black Power is in the heart of Leimert Park and has opened its doors to everything from youth organizers to toy drives to film screenings and community town hall meetings. To make a donation or make a request, please visit blmla.org. That's blmla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Did you know about 1 in 3 people with plaque psoriasis may also develop psoriatic arthritis, which causes joint pain, stiffness, and swelling? Does this sound like you? Listen to what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy, and for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Imagine being a million miles away. Explore what's possible. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Visit Tremfya.com or call 1-800-526-7736.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome Wednesdays on the J Lux Club. And our very special contributor, Dr. Pio Da Silva, who has over 20 years experience in backroom diplomacy, mediation, and negotiation. He's taught politics, international relations, and several graduate and undergraduate programs at universities in New York, New Jersey, Long Island, and Queens, University of Belfast in Northern Ireland. Dr. Da Silva's publications include Postmodern Insurgencies, Political Violence, Identity Formation, Peacemaking, and Comparative Perspective. He's the co-founder with Professor W.D. Lakshman, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, of the International War-Related Trauma and Humanitarian Intervention Trust, setting up psychosocial training programs for practitioners serving combatants, non-combatants during Sri Lanka's Civil War. Dr. De Silva, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, my brother Jesse.
Dr. De Silva, the final two lines of this amazing piece that you wrote, titled A Life That Carried the Rainbow, an ode to U.S. civil rights icon, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., 1941 to 2026. The final two lines, well, they are a treatment within themselves. You said that Jesse Jackson Sr. kept hope alive. And then the final question, of course, is whether we will. Can you share with us your thoughts on some of the ways in which Jesse Jackson kept hope alive and why that challenge for us is equally, if not more urgent now than ever?
Yes. So in 1971, your father founded what he called Operation Push, which is People United to Save Humanity. We need it more than ever now under this current administration. And he, of course, merged Push later on with the Rainbow Coalition. And that phrase, Rainbow Coalition, was not a rhetorical flourish. It was strategic genius. He understood that America's power structure on division. They always try to divide, as they say in Latin, divide et impera, which means divide and rule. So black against white, native born against immigrant, worker against worker. And the Rainbow Coalition, his Rainbow Coalition, sought to transcend those fault lines. And that is what we need to do, because we are, again, being divided. We have ICE in our communities, dividing, Americans versus immigrants, all this kind of stuff that is being artificially generated and sprung with a great deal of violence in our communities. We need to overcome that. And that is the hope that Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. brought to the table, brought to us, which he exemplified, which he embodied. And this is what we need to do. We must overcome our divisions and defeat the people who are truly bringing this country down. This is a great country, and it is unity in struggle that will see us through. It is why the South Africans were able to succeed. There was unity in struggle. It's something that the great Amilcar Cabral wrote about. He was the the General Secretary of the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, because before Portuguese agents killed him, assassinated him. But unity in struggle is what we need today.
Pio, let me add this. I think, and this is just my own personal reflection, that, and I give as a seminarian a lot of thought to spirit energy. I think Dr. King accomplished not only a lot in his 39 years of life, and certainly we are still excavating and comparatively analyzing and critiquing the ways in which his words matter today more than ever. This is, we commemorated on January 15th his 97th birthday. He's been dead or deceased twice as long as he lived, and yet his impact is still being felt. I struggle with Dad's 84 years, recognizing that even in this moment, that there may be so much more about the life of Jesse Jackson that for the next 90 years or 100 years or beyond, we may still be unpacking. Because you can't pack it overnight. You can't pack it in the 2-week memorial service. It is a constant unpacking of there's a line in the Negro spirituals that said, treading the path of the blood of the slaughtered. Many of the paths that we will walk in the future are paths that Jesse Jackson has already tread. He's already been down this path, and he navigates us past this pothole and past this abyss. And he says the way around it is to go this way. And so we're going to be reflecting upon the life of Jesse Jackson and the methodology, including something that you excavated today, that Jesse Jackson's psychological impact on the masses of people, maybe something we haven't even begun to unpack in terms of giving us our sense of somebodyness and our sense of possibility that comes from that particular message. But in this moment, and since our focus in this hour has been on Jesse Jackson's global contributions, I remind everyone today that not only has he received praise from the King of Britain for his life, but accolades and praise comes in from presidents and embassies from around the world for the contribution that Jesse Jackson made. And in this moment, I'm going to do what I can share with you on behalf of my family, an assignment that I've accepted from my mother. And that is to make sure that the spirit energy of what these commemorations represent be representative of his spirit, that it doesn't devolve into the kind of partisan remembrance that keeps us from being able to extend a hand. It doesn't mean we principally change our position. It doesn't mean that we give up any moral authority for what we know to be right, but that we conduct ourselves at the highest level of decency and respect and civility. PL, we have about 2 minutes for your final word of hope.
Your father embodied leadership and integrity, something which is lacking today. So we need to learn lessons from great people like your father, the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., and his mentor, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. These are icons of the US civil rights movement and what truly made America great. And that is the hope that we have the courage and the vision and the fortitude to carry on their messages of hope, solidarity, and to change the United States for the better, that we are able to, that we are able to learn from our mistakes and right the ship. And this is the message of hope that your father, Dr. King, and others in the civil rights movement have shown the United States and the world.
So proud of my dad. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is no longer with us, and yet he's with us. Thank you, PL, for your very kind contribution and tribute to Jesse Jackson. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Reverend Todd Yeary on Wealthy Wednesdays when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to restore a slavery exhibit removed from Philadelphia's President's House site at Independence National Historic Park.
We have won! We have won!
Protesters gathered to celebrate the ruling as the judge cited George Orwell's novel 1984 and said the government must follow the law and consult the city before altering the exhibit while the legal battle continues. Former President Barack Obama is honoring Reverend Jesse Jackson, calling him a true giant who helped lead historic movements for change. Obama said Jackson's presidential campaigns in 1984 and 1988 led the foundation for his own 2008 run. And Whoopi Goldberg is addressing her name appearing in Jeffrey Epstein files, saying she was only seeking a private plane for a 2013 charity event and had no relationship with Epstein. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Visit the new Hard Rock Casino Tejon for the Kilo of Gold giveaway. Drawings every Thursday in February. Visit Hard Rock Casino Tejon, the easiest drive from downtown LA. The excitement starts here at the new Hard Rock Casino Tejon.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I went to my first high school basketball game in California Tuesday night and wound up seeing one of the best players in the country. I found out later in the first quarter that the kid is number 5 in the nation on ESPN's Top 100 for the class of 2026. The kid is Jason Crow Jr., a 6'4", smooth-shooting left-handed guard at Inglewood High. I know now why Crow is a top 5 prospect. He dropped 45 points last night to lead Inglewood to an 82-69 win over Anaheim Fairmont Prep in the Division I semifinals. 24 of his 45 points last night came on 3-pointers. Crow has one of the smoothest strokes for a jumper I've ever seen on the high school level, and I've seen my share of high school legends while growing up in Chicago. Crow is going to Missouri in the fall. How in the world did USC and UCLA let a kid like this get out of their backyard? No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I have some news. The room is full. Our founding members cohort on the Art of Conversation has begun, and I could not be more energized by the professionals who said yes to mastering the craft. Their dedication to curating great conversations reminds me why I do this work. Now, if you wanted to join us and did not make it in time, I want you to hear this. The next cohort is coming. I do not have the firm dates yet, but I do have a waiting list. And everyone on that list will receive early access and special discounts when enrollment opens. After almost 40 years of interviewing world leaders and cultural icons, I am teaching everything I know. Don't miss your chance to be in the next room. Go to TavishTalks.com and get on the waiting list right now. That's TavishTalks.com. The conversation continues. Will you be part of it?
Yeah, man.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
On KBLA Talk 1580.
Download the app.
It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and the J Lunch Club. On Wednesdays, we discuss the politics of our faith with Reverend Dr. Todd S. Yeary, Esquire. S. Todd Yeary is principal of the Yeary Firm, a Maryland-based litigation and government relations firm, and also serves as the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church of Baltimore and affiliates. Dr. Yeary is also the former chief executive officer of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the international human and civil rights organization founded by the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. Dr. Yeary's social justice work includes having served on the national board of the National Action Network from 2015 to 2021, past political action chair for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP, as co-founding principal of Community Churches for Community Development, and as founding principal of Strategic Advocacy and Legislative Think Tank, or SALT, a faith-based public policy collaborative that works on regional and national empowerment strategies impacting disaffected communities. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you, my brother. Things changed in a week, and so I'm praying for you and the entire Jackson crew. To hear the reference to Reverend as the late Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Is a shock. And certainly we are grateful for his legacy and his witness, but we also know he left us a big assignment that we'll try to hold true to in a way that will honor his life.
I appreciate that so much, Dr. Yeary. I spent some time with my brothers and sisters today at a press conference, sharing some insights on Dad's life, and then I went to spend some private time with him at the funeral home, and decided just before the show to go downtown and buy him a suit, a tie, and a shirt that would be, I think, appropriate for the occasion. And he's just operating and occupying every thought on my mind at this hour. And so I'm grateful that you're here with me to help me get through the show. Todd, share with us some of your reflections on Jesse Jackson.
We only have an hour.
And 3 commercial breaks. So.
Yeah, let's start there. How much time do we have? Let me start with impressions. Impressions matter. And so I will start with my first awareness of Reverend. You hear the name, but you don't really make the connection until you encounter him. And sometimes that encounter is in person. Certainly meeting him during my senior year of high school, which I've shared before. But his speeches at the conventions, 84 and 88, I think were so profound, not just in terms of the presentation, but the substance, that really the first reflection I have about Reverend is almost like a conversion experience, like literally hearing from a prophet of God, speaking to not only the urgency of the moment, but the imagination of those who would make up the movement. And so I think Reverend's capacity to communicate is something that will not soon be matched at the different levels, where I've been privileged to be able to see him communicate in negotiations for the release of persons held hostage, to meeting with CEOs of corporations, raising issues on behalf of individuals and communities, to just sitting around in the office, with him sitting in his chair or a chair with the news on and just having a discussion. Rev was a masterful communicator. And I think that's what we are missing in this moment, because no one could capture the urgency of a circumstance like Jesse Louis Jackson Sr.
You know, Todd, in the last hour, P.L. Da Silva talked about one of Jesse Jackson's greatest contributions was the idea of his psychological impact on a people. And in this hour, you begin your answer to one of the questions talking about the imagination of Jesse Jackson, still in that psychological space. I know we have about 2 minutes before we come forward. I'm hearing a deeper dive from you and P.L. Da Silva into the thinking of Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, Rev always started with a canvas that left room for creativity. And so he aligned his words with his understanding of the people that he was advocating for and the situation he was working to change. And so his communication started with being very thoughtful. You've seen it, I've seen it. Reverend would start with thinking about a situation, and then very often he would get on a call, and the call would be, get this, so that we can make sure that whatever he was speaking to was accurate. I think that's where the imagination comes in. Imagination requires trust, and Reverend always established trust on behalf of those he was fighting for, and even those he may have been viewed as fighting with, so that there could be some positive outcome, even in what would otherwise be considered difficult situations.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, whose social justice work includes having served as the national board for the National Action Network from 2015 to 2021. He's a civil rights attorney, public policy advocate. Dr. Yeary holds a deep belief that honest dialogue creates opportunities, but most importantly, he was a close confidant in so many ways of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and I'm grateful that he is a regular contributor on our show. More on KBLA Talk 1580 with Dr. S. Todd Yeary when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's up? What's up? What's
We got to laugh the pain away.
Hey, KBLA delegation, happy Black History Month.
Around here, we celebrate our culture, our community, and our contributions daily. But this year, as we observe the 100th anniversary of Black History Month celebrations, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy. He's been married for 6 years. Videotaped his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon. Honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement, we're KBLA Talk 1580.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on this, the 18th day of Black History Month. The Politics of Our Faith with Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Todd, thank you for spending this time with me on this very special day, the day after my father ascended to heaven and to glory.
Yeah, think about that. I guess in some way, being a preacher of the gospel, you can't keep heaven waiting forever. And having spent time with your dad over the months of the decline of his physical health, it became more and more apparent, especially recently, going back to probably last July and August, when I saw him in Chicago and he was getting awards, and I would sit with him in private in a green room. He would still find strength to whisper some words, and I could still certainly understand him because I learned how to try to keep pace with what was going on with his ability to speak clearly. But behind his eyes and in his words was a kind of a frustration driven by a passionate concern for the nation, the world, and quite honestly, God's people. He knew that physically his body would not accommodate two things, not just the only two things, but two significant things about Reverend Jackson that we ought remember. Number one is his ability to communicate. There's nothing probably more painful than to lose the capability of the one thing that has been your source and your resource of being able to do the thing that you really feel like you've been called to do. And so when he couldn't speak as clearly as he had been able to over the years, that was one. Two, he was tall and statuesque. To see Reverend walk in a room, the room changed, not just because it was Reverend, but because of who Reverend was. Listen, when he came to,
he's a pillar of strength when he walked in that room, wasn't he? Alpha male and in charge.
all of my teachers, the year he came to Durham High School, the teachers couldn't halfway teach because they had seen Reverend Jesse Jackson come in the room. I've got classmates now. They've been communicating with me, checking on me, how you doing? Because they know that I had the tremendous privilege and honor of working with and for your father. They still have, I have classmates from high school that still have their first voter registration card that they applied for on the day that your dad spoke to that assembly.
That's some kind of amazing. Todd, let me go to a tape right quick that Gina has signed just for us. Gina?
The world mourning the loss of a civil rights giant.
Our flag is red, white, and blue, but our nation is rainbow. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight.
Reverend Jesse Jackson was one of the most prominent politicians in the 80s and 90s, blazing the trail for generations to follow. All of his life, the Reverend Jesse Jackson preaching, exhorting, demanding justice, in a quest to help his people and nation overcome.
We ain't the bottom, we the foundation.
Always marching, civil rights nonviolent soldier. There he was, shoulder to shoulder with Martin Luther King Jr. after witnessing the beatings of Bloody Sunday on television. Jackson eventually became one of the top lieutenants in the critical Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which challenged the Jim Crow South's withering oppression. A witness to history, he was there on that fateful April evening when King was struck down by an assassin's bullet.
I tried to feel his head, and I asked him, I said, Dr. King, do you hear me? Dr. King, do you hear me? And he didn't say anything.
After a leadership struggle with King's successor, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, Jackson split from the SCLC and formed a new organization, People United to Save Humanity, PUSH.
Beautiful.
After Dr. King, I don't think anyone captured the spirit of America like Reverend Jackson, and he took the movement north. I think Jesse Jackson was the link from that generation of King and them all the way to my generation, and then the generation behind me.
The first wave of the civil rights movement had succeeded in breaking down significant barriers, but Jackson's primary focus was on economic empowerment.
We know that we are worthy of respect and protection, but nobody really knows our name, and so we're really still struggling.
He broke boundaries in politics, twice running for president, first in 1984 under the banner of a Rainbow Coalition. In 1988, he was, for a time, the Democratic Party's frontrunner for the presidential nomination, before eventually losing the nomination to Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis.
I'd rather go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death at the sheltered shore.
Jackson also took on the role of freelance international negotiator, meeting with some of the world's most brutal tyrants.
Overseas, the American black activist Jesse Jackson has become an intermediary in the Middle East.
In 1984, he met with Syria's Hafez al-Assad.
Goodman and the Reverend Jackson arrived at Andrews Air Force Base,
securing the release of downed American naval officer Lieutenant Robert Goodman. In 1990, he held talks with Saddam Hussein to free foreign nationals being held in Iraq as human shields. And in 1999, he went behind enemy lines again to meet with Slobodan Milosevic to negotiate the return of 3 American prisoners of war. At times, he was a spiritual advisor, counseling President Clinton in his darkest hour, facing impeachment over a sex scandal. But Jackson had his own moments where he fell far short of what he had championed. In the mid-1980s, facing controversy for allegedly making a highly offensive remark about the Jewish community.
God is not finished with me yet.
And as an ordained minister, having to admit in 2001, he had fathered a child after an affair with a former staffer. Although somewhat diminished, Jackson leaned in on his faith of forgiveness and redemption and kept fighting, keeping his eyes on the prize. He saw one of his hopes realized on election night in 2008 in Chicago's Grant Park.
America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there.
He wept as President-elect Barack Obama delivered his victory speech. In recent years, the effects of age and a long illness had slowed his gait, but not his spirit. Jackson going public with his private health battle, dealing with a myriad of health issues. He was hospitalized in Chicago in mid-November and released a few weeks later. Through it all, Jackson's faith and hope in what America could be endured. Jackson's family saying he passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 84 years old.
America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
Dr. Urey, that was your friend.
In so many ways, he fathered many of us. He treated us not like we were kids, but he protected us like we were his children. And we always maintained that sense of honor and respect for Reverend. I don't think folks will fully appreciate the humanity, with all that was captured in that clip. 2012, Reverend went to the Gambia. Upon arrival, it was to appeal for the cessation of the execution of political prisoners. By the time we got ready to leave, I got a call on a Wednesday to be ready to leave to go to the Gambia on a Saturday. That meant I was going to miss Sunday morning. Black preachers, we don't miss Sunday morning. and if you tell Black folk they leave, that you're going out of town early, they going somewhere else on Sunday morning. So I remember leaving a note for the congregation to be read. And it said, by the time you hear this letter read to you, I will be in West Africa accompanying Reverend Jackson on a trip of significant importance. I didn't know how significant it would be until we were met at the guest house by the U.S. ambassador to the Gambia, who made a request that Reverend would seek the release of 2 dual citizens who were being held. Reverend's leaning back. There's a picture. I have to appreciate Butch Wing, who was a member of staff. He captured so many of those moments. And after being weary from a lot of international flying and thinking about it, Rev turned his focus, and then we met later that night to talk about how the next day would unfold, how we would spend time with cabinet officers and understand what's going on in the Gambia. And then we would meet at the presidential compound, and we went through the formalities. And I remember Reverend coming down the steps and inside after a couple of hours. He pulled me to the side and he said, "I believe we're going to get this done." And he got it done. And there was a big to-do in West Africa about him getting it done. What was interesting, though, when we came back, when we went over there, we went through Senegal. On the way back, we came through Brussels. When we landed in Europe, there was great appreciation for Reverend's person, for the work that he had done. Great celebration. Reverend had just done something that the government didn't even want known, that they had asked him to do. When we got to JFK and there was a press conference, it was almost as if what Reverend had just achieved didn't even matter.
Mm.
And you know what? It didn't deter him and it did not discourage him. And so I think what we ought to appreciate, for all of the critique that folks will have, is that in Rev's authenticity as a human being, he never lost his gift of compassion.
Mm.
And it stayed with him every breath of his adult life.
I know this to be true because when Dad would get on these flights abroad, more often than not, he would try to invite us to go with him to experience the reality of our people outside of the United States. And the respect that he would receive from foreign leaders and foreign dignitaries was overwhelming. But Dad approached it not as a politician, he approached it as a minister. And he would take ecumenical delegations with him, sometimes of Jews and Muslims and Christians, but different ecumenical groups and leadership, to expose them to the dynamics on the ground in these parts of the world. But also within these countries, there were Muslims, there were Christians, there were Jews. And if our delegation could reach out to its counterparts during these intense negotiations, it would lay the foundation for a moral mission and a moral appeal, Dad used to call it, and not a political appeal for the release of people. And so he brought to diplomacy something that one of my colleagues who ended up being the governor, I believe, of New Mexico, who also found himself following the leadership of Jesse Jackson and rescuing people abroad. Jesse Jackson came at it from a different angle, and it was an angle that the leadership, even if they were fighting, had to receive because its intentions were sincere. There was integrity and moral authority in the name Jesse Jackson. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary is offering some reflections in the politics of our faith on the late Reverend Jesse Jackson. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says she believes she understands what's fueling recent student walkouts tied to ICE operations.
I think it does speak to the left-wing bias that is unfortunately very present in our nation's public school system.
She says while the administration supports First Amendment rights, students are still expected to be in school. Maryland's Black Governor Wes Moore testified before the Senate Finance Committee in support of legislation aimed at making Maryland more affordable and competitive. The proposals would increase grocery pricing transparency, boost housing near transit, and promote economic development across the state. And Tony Clark is stepping down as executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association. Clark, the first African-American to hold the role, is resigning following an internal investigation into an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Getting around LA doesn't have to cost a lot. Metro has fares that fit every budget. 20 free rides for qualified riders through the Life Fare program. Free passes for students with GoPass and affordable options for everyone in between. Wherever you're going, Metro's got you covered. Visit metro.net/fare programs.
Visit the new Hard Rock Casino Tejon for the Kilo of Gold giveaway. Drawings every Thursday in February. Visit Hard Rock Casino Tejon, the easiest drive from downtown LA. The excitement starts here at the new Hard Rock Casino Tejon.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A documentary about Michael Vick's first season as head football coach at HBCU Norfolk State has been nominated for an NAACP Image Award. The former Pro Bowl quarterback left a broadcasting job in 2025 to take over the Norfolk State program. The story of Vick was nominated for Outstanding Short Form Series. Hip-hop star Kendrick Lamar was nominated in the same category for his halftime performance at last year's Super Bowl in New Orleans. The NAACP Image Awards is February 28th at the Pasadena Civic Auditorium. BET will have live coverage. Tiger Woods, who turned 50 in December, did not rule out playing in this year's Masters in April. Woods is recovering from his 7th back surgery in October. The 15-time major champion is in town to host the Genesis Invitational at the Riviera Country Club in Palos Verdes. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
They call it progress, but progress has a price. Land once held in black hands, taken, stolen, erased. Acres paved into highways, fields burned. Homes replaced by parking lots and broken promises. Every deed lost was a dream deferred. We talk about millionaires, but what about the millionaires that never were? The farmers whose soil was seized. The families who watched their inheritance disappear. The wealth that never had a chance to grow because its roots were ripped from the ground. They took the land, but never the legacy, because the soil remembers, and so do we. Every story matters. Our mission is to collect, preserve, and amplify these stories. If this is part of your family's history, visit blacklandlost.org/share your story and help bring us closer to justice.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI Trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300. or AfricanFocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than S. Todd Eury, and I'm so grateful that he is here to participate. Dr. Eury, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to hang out with you. You keep me fresh, so to speak.
Reverend Dr. Eury, let me ask a question that is a fairly difficult question for me to ask, because it is a critique of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jackson departed us just yesterday at 84 years old, and there has been a growing unrest amongst young leaders that older leaders need to step aside. They need to pass the torch. And I would often ask Dad this question: Dad, when you gonna pass the torch? He said, "What torch? Nobody's stopping you from leading. Get on there and do what you need to do." Todd, this whole notion of passing the torch and whether or not our leadership does it correctly or appropriately, if it's ministry and spirit-driven leadership that is accountable to God and God alone, there's no such thing as passing the torch. This is life's ministry for these men and these women.
Okay, so here you go. I thought I was like we were halfway through. I was trying to be hopeful. You're gonna let me slide today, but no, you decide you want to go.
I trust a critique. I trust a critique of Jesse Jackson with you. I trusted it. Trusted it with everybody.
Look, here's the critique of Reverend that I will give you. I didn't always agree with Reverend. Sometimes we went. We had some very intense conversations, so much so that I even got some advice from your mother once to kind of help me understand, because
watch out there now. Watch out there now.
Listen. But here's what I learned about Reverend. One, he had done this work long enough to really be able to say for himself when enough was going to be enough. There is no retirement, no mandatory retirement age for doing justice work. So let's just be real clear there.
I like that.
Number two, there was no more universally recognizable human civil rights personage on the planet than your father. I saw it with my own eyes. Walking through Brussels airport, random people who would have no idea that they'd be running into him, stopping him, shaking his hand, taking pictures. That's overseas. I've been in those spaces. So that's number two. And his presence, quite honestly, wasn't stopping anybody else from doing anything.
That's correct.
So whether or not he passed the torch or not, and remember, I was Reverend's number two. Look, sometimes the best place to be is riding in the second chariot. Let me give it to you this way, since we're going to probably get to a word of hope. I'm not trying to get ahead of that, but I've thought a lot about this since the hospitalization of your father, first around his birthday and then again in November. And here's what came to me. What would I want from my time with Reverend Jesse Jackson? And it came from Scripture. Let me just have a double portion of your spirit.
Mm.
And so, as with Elijah and Elisha, when you come to recognize that your leader will soon be taken away from you, walk with him to the end, and you'll have what you asked. Sometimes folks want what they call passing the torch, but what they really want passed is the platform where they can just assume or presume that they're going to get that person's gift. There will never be, hear me, everybody on KBLA and anywhere else that might be streaming, there will never, ever be another Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. Full stop, period. There will never be one who saw the world the way he did, that thought about it the way he did, that approached it the way he did. He was unique in so many ways, but he never lost his humanity to recognize that he was not perfect. He was simply trying to be perfected in doing the work.
I love that. And the supporting cast, my mother, this is a special kind of bond between a person who is as unique as Dr. Todd Yeary suggested my father is, but to have a life partner with him for more than 64 years, who allowed him the latitude to be himself, to do what he did, to do what he does. And it was never 9 to 5. I've never met any of my professional classmates' parents who understood the life my father lived. My father lived more days in a hotel than he did in his home on Constance Avenue. Now you tell me what marriage can survive that. You tell me from 28 years old to 74 years old, before the announcement or the acknowledgement of the Parkinson's disease, what marriage in America or in the world can survive a man who 4 or 5 days a week is in a hotel somewhere in the world, somewhere in the nation, and back home at push on Saturday? It simply doesn't happen. That is a partnership in ministry that is so deep and so profound. It is a supporting cast, not a nagging cast, not a worrying cast, not a "where are you today, Jesse" cast. It ain't none of that. Man, none of that was happening in that space, and there's plenty of it that's happening in a lot of other spaces. But to allow Jesse to be who Jesse was and is to us, both in life and in death, requires a supporting cast, Todd. A real supporting cast. Or dad go it alone.
Well, and that latter part was not something that he would have wanted, because he knew that your mother was that partner and continues to be that partner. I'll give you kind of a funny. So we're kind of coming out of COVID, but we're in a place. So I'm in Chicago. I go by the house. Your dad's sitting in the front room. We're sitting in the chairs across from each other. He's kind of going back and forth, and I'm taking notes, and we're looking at some things. And Mrs. J, your mother, is over in the kitchen where, she has a little TV. And, after she gives us a little bit of time to go back and forth, you can hear her voice carry from the kitchen to the room, and she begins to engage us. What are y'all going to do about this? It's almost like she just seen a story on the news, and she's wondering, what are y'all doing? What are y'all going to do? Why are y'all still sitting here? She kept the fire of urgency going in your father so that he would not stop doing the work.
When we come forward, I have a very special clip for you. Our very special guest in this hour, The Politics of Our Faith, is none other than Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire, a disciple of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of a utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's given us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foxer, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Time is up. The IRS is in full collection mode for 2025, issuing liens, levies, and garnishments to anyone who has a past tax debt or unfiled tax returns. Don't wait till it's too late. Your paycheck and bank accounts are at risk of being seized. Call now and stop the collection process today. If you're living check to check, no matter how much you're making, you still may qualify for the Fresh Start programs offered by the IRS to reduce or even eliminate your tax debt. It's just a 5-minute call to get your options, and it's free. If you owe back taxes, have years of unfiled tax returns, under audit, have a wage or bank levy, or finally just want to sleep better, business or personal, call the experts at Republic Tax Relief while there's still time. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and tough. This veteran-owned company has the fight you need to take on the IRS. Don't go at it alone. The call is free. Call their hotline number now, 800-259-4149. That's 800-259-4149. Find out if you qualify today. Call 800-259-4149 or go to republictaxrelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The midterm elections are upon us. It is voting season once again. Common Cause's motto is fighting for the democracy we deserve. In service of that goal, Common Cause puts its state and national policy expertise, massive network of grassroots supporters, and nonpartisan approach into action to strengthen our democracy against the challenges we face today. They work at every level of government on priorities that impact each of our lives, like defending the right to vote, limiting big money's influence on our elections, holding public officials accountable, and more. Common Cause is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. They seek to empower all people to make their voices heard in the political process. This election may be the most important one ever. If you'd like to make a donation or volunteer in service to the Constitution, please visit commoncause.org. That's commoncause.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Every morning, we rise and shine, make breakfast, and brush away the night's rest. These routines help us start the day off right. Nature-Made vitamins are a simple step in that daily care regimen. Multivitamins with daily essentials, clinically studied probiotics for gut health support, magnesium to help relax the body. Nature-Made is made to care for you every day. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Todd Yeary. We have a clip that I believe we are ready to play in the final segment of our show. Why don't we go to that clip and then have a brief conversation and our word of hope from the Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary.
Tonight, a memorial grows at the Jackson home as neighbors and his children mourn his passing.
Our Sabrina Franza spoke to his family. Sabrina, how are they doing?
Joe, Erica, they're strong. They miss him already. His family was with him in his final moments, which is what they had planned, to show up for him in the same way they say he showed up for them.
Jesse Jackson is a multi-generational figure.
Jackson's namesake, Jesse Jackson Jr., sat down with us to explain how he plans to continue his dad's legacy.
In this phase of my life, while I mourn, I'm going to be sharpening the pencil and trying to answer for myself the questions of what my father would want me to do.
That legacy stretches beyond the civil rights movement.
Jesse Jackson's work is so broad and so extraordinary, it's almost very difficult to define.
Jesse Jr. was there when his father passed just after midnight, along with his other siblings.
It was as it should have been. He was surrounded by family, and he went peacefully.
Santita Jackson tells us that was always the plan.
I think that as he approached the throne of God, I really do believe that he was told, "Son, well done." And that gives me comfort.
Strangers and neighbors alike came by her family home, where the Jackson family has lived for decades, put down flowers and told stories.
He came to visit us so many times at St. Sabina.
Anita O'Neill met Jackson on an airplane years ago, took this photo together. At the time, she says she didn't understand the magnitude of that moment.
I was at home and I'm like, I got to come out just to show my respect and show my love to the family. And I just think the world has lost a great soul.
The family says as they continue to grieve, they will also start planning a grand celebration of life for their dad. That, as his memorial just outside the family's home continues to grow. One of the balloons on this memorial here with a simple message: thank you. We're live in South Shore. Sabrina Franza, CBS News, Chicago.
Sabrina, thank you.
Can't hear you.
Todd, I was going to share with you that it seems to me that at this hour, Dad only asked for gratitude from people. And in this hour, in this moment of reflection upon his life, the idea of gratitude is something that's particularly important. Todd, take your time. A word of hope on the life of and significance of your friend.
We have so many things to be grateful for. This is a tough moment because Reverend's body of work has been so significant and impactful for many of us. I would argue for all of us that we should not be given a pass on the grieving of Reverend's passing. Certainly, none of us is going to stay here forever. But even when you think you see it coming, when it finally arrives, it always seems to feel too soon. The appreciation that I think Reverend longed for and got to be a little more challenging toward the end is he would never be discouraged from doing this work. I've had some conversations with Reverend in private that I will certainly keep in private. There are some things that Rev has achieved and accomplished that the folks who benefited from it never said thank you. Came with great cost, great expense, but it didn't stop Reverend from doing the work. Didn't stop Reverend from giving the instructions to do the work when he could no longer do it himself. Every conversation, if Reverend thought he could get the words out, was going to come with some duty that I would have, or anyone else in his vicinity would have. So the gratitude that we owe to Reverend Jackson in this moment is nothing less than following through the baton or passing the torch that folks may have mentioned. Well, here it is. The torch is yours. The baton is there for you to grab. What are you going to do with it? We may debate whether or not somebody has stayed in the fight too long. I would rather have someone that stayed in the fight too long than someone who got out of the fight too soon.
Say that now.
So I'm just going to kind of leave it here. The mantle is there. Who among us, not just singularly, but collectively, has the courage, the confidence, and the inner fortitude to believe, as Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. believed, that our best days are still ahead of us and there's work to be done. I think where I would leave the word of hope today is that was Reverend's word. Hope that is seen is not hope, is what the scriptures teach us. Hope is always about bringing to fruition that which is conceptually unavailable to us and theoretically impossible in this moment, but for the creative imagination of folks who refuse to be deterred nor discouraged along the way. And so in this 100th year of acknowledging Black history formally, when we think of lift every voice and sing, the second verse, stony the road we trod.
Yes, sir.
Bitter the chastening rod. Felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have now our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come for a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the bright gleam of our bright stars cast. That is Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. So your assignment is to keep hope alive.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580, The Politics of Our Faith, with the Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary, a disciple of the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So grateful that he is a regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show right here on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on Thought Provoking Thursdays tomorrow.